What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this Quick Thoughts episode, a second Quick Thoughts in a row where we're doing a mock draft. But I put one out yesterday, a first round mock draft for the 2024 NFL draft. And I gave the Denver Broncos a wide receiver, I believe, in their pick at pick 14. And now the news comes out that Russell Wilson's getting benched. And obviously, that means that the Denver Broncos are intending to move on from him. They'll likely cut him in March, according to reports from Diana Rossini from The Athletic. Listen, I don't want to dive too deep into the Russ conversation. I think it's interesting, considering the Broncos are still alive for a playoff spot, and given their recent win streak, although they've struggled in the last game or two, I thought they'd try to make a push for the playoffs and then assess the quarterback position in the offseason. They didn't do that. A lot of people think there's some bad blood between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, honestly. It never seemed like Russell Wilson was Sean Payton's guy. But nonetheless, the Denver Broncos are moving on from Russell Wilson, and this draft is an experiment to see. We're going to take over all 32 teams here and go through the first round. This draft is an experiment to see what would it look like if the Denver Broncos traded up to number one overall and drafted Caleb Williams. And let me first say, I don't think this is going to happen whatsoever. I think the Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams first overall. I don't think they're going to trade out of that pick. But you could see a world where they believe in building around Justin Fields. And considering they need talent in a lot of places, I could see them in a certain circumstance trading this pick away. Now, I don't think it's going to be down to 14. I think it might be down to 4 or 5. Maybe the Giants or the Patriots want to trade up to get a quarterback, to get Caleb Williams. I don't think it's likely to get all the way down to 14 just because I think they want to keep a high draft pick and take one of these early weapons to give Justin Fields, if they're going to keep Fields, that is. Nonetheless, we're going to make that happen. It's the thought experiment of the day for the draft. So yeah, that's what's going to happen in this. So let's go ahead and pull up Chicago and Denver to get a trade done. I'm not going to try to predict the exact terms, but it'll be obviously one for 14, and then the Broncos will give at least a first in the next year. This is Sam. They need more. I could see it looking something like this: the first and then a second and a third. Probably takes a little more than that. Maybe they add another third onto it. I don't know. I'm just going to push this through. My goal is not to try to predict what the trade would look like. My goal is to simply see what it would look like in this draft if the Broncos got the first overall pick. And of course, they're going to take Caleb Williams, and he'll be their quarterback for the next 15 years, maybe. Arizona has pick number 2. In the original mock draft I did yesterday, I had them trading out of this pick for another team, going to trade up for a quarterback. However, I think I'll stick to one trade up for the early portion of this draft. Hint, hint. So I'll give them Marvin Harrison Jr. They're not looking for a quarterback. They get the best weapon available in the draft, the best player available in the draft, in my opinion. Give Kyler Murray a weapon like he's never had, I think, at this young of an age. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, an elite wide receiver in this league for a long time, but was kind of on the back end when he got to Arizona. So Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is a great pick for them. This leaves Washington in an interesting position. I got flamed last time I had them taking Marvin Harrison Jr. in the third pick. I got flamed in the comments. Washington's going to take a tackle. Washington's going to take a quarterback. And while I both think those are viable, right? Sam Howell got hit a lot last year, and he didn't look great last year. So I don't hate either one of those. I thought it'd be fun to see what it would look like if Washington went the route of the best player available, and that was Marvin Harrison Jr. This time around, I still think they believe in Sam Howell. And maybe that's not what I would do, but I think they're going to build around Sam Howell. And so I think they're going to take the best tackle available. In my opinion, that's Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. And that leaves the Patriots in a good position. I've said for a long time, I thought the Patriots were going to end up with Drake May. I thought they were going to get the second pick in the draft. Didn't expect them to beat the Broncos last week, obviously. So, second pick of the draft would have been an easy pick for Drake May. In this case, pick 4, they end up getting their guy. I think their quarterback to build around, whether Bill Belichick is there or not. And then similarly, the Giants, I think they love the way this draft played out. They get their guy, the quarterback Jaden Daniels. They can put him, redshirt him behind Daniel Jones for the time being. Daniel Jones has essentially 1 year left on his deal. As I mentioned in the last video, go check that out if you haven't already. I had the Giants trading up in the last video to get a quarterback. I think this is a great scenario for them. They get their guy. for the near and long-term future. The Chargers sitting here, I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. Brock Bowers, I think, is a good fit for them, gives Justin Herbert another weapon. Simple as that. Tennessee, it's an interesting pick. I could see them going both wide receiver and offensive tackle. I think both of those need help. I think they need to protect Will Levis better. I think they need to provide Will Levis with more weapons. Uh, I think if these are the two options, they go Olufashanu. I think if Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, they go Marvin Harrison. But in terms of these two available neighbors or Fashanu, I think they go Fashanu. And that leaves Chicago at pick 8, first pick of the draft. They get an elite weapon for Justin Fields. League neighbors go into Chicago, and then that leaves the Jets at number 9. Well, the two top tackles are off the board, but this pick is going to be a tackle no matter what, in my opinion. J.C. Latham, I think, plugs a hole for them. They're going to need 2 tackles, in my opinion, in this offseason, so that plugs one of those. Atlanta sitting here at pick 10. Obviously needs at quarterback, but I think this is kind of an early reach for a guy like Bo Nix or Michael Penix. So Dallas Turner it is, helps that defensive line improve. New Orleans at pick 11. Similarly, I think they could use an edge rusher. The defensive backs are fairly solid. So I think that's the play for them. Latu is the best guy on the board. I also like Jer'Jon Newton. But I think they go Latu from UCLA. And that leaves Green Bay at 12. Green Bay needs corners. Kool-Aid McKinstry is the top corner in the draft. I like the fit. I think he takes the reins from several years ago with HaHa Clinton Dix in the fun names category of the Green Bay secondary. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I love that pick to the Packers. Pick 13 for the Las Vegas Raiders. They need defensive interior. I could see a pick of Romeo Odunze if they assume they're trading and moving on from Devontae Adams. I would love that as a Jets fan if the Jets made a move for him. And then they probably have to give up a first-round pick next year. But nonetheless, I'm assuming that's not going to happen. So I like Jer'Jon Newton to anchor that defensive line. I think he'd be a great fit in Antonio Pierce's scheme, assuming he's coming back as head coach. Pick 14. We already got Justin Fields a weapon. I think we need to get him an impact defensive player on the other side. I like Jared Verse. I like pairing him with Montez Sweat, who's really come on since the Bears have traded for him. I thought that was a stupid deal, in my opinion, a stupid trade when they acquired Montez Sweat from the Washington football team, Washington Commanders. And they extend him, and he ends up taking a huge step up in Chicago's system. I think it's a great deal for them. They've never let him hit the open market and tried to compete with other teams for him, paid him. And now I think they get another very good pass rusher to pair alongside of him. I like that pick for Chicago. 2 really good picks. I know they traded out, could have had Caleb Williams. They get an elite weapon for Caleb Williams, and they get an impact defensive player. I really like the draft for them for trading out a number 1. Number 15, Minnesota Vikings. Their secondary could use a boost. Well, I could see them drafting Odunze to play him alongside Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I think they go defense. I don't hate Cooper DeJean or Nate Wiggins here, but for the purposes of this, I'll say Nate Wiggins. I don't know a lot about the scheme fit. I mentioned this in the last video. I'm not a huge college football guy. I'm really operating on the limited action I've seen and what I feel could fill a hole for the team. And I think that's a solid pick for them, either corner there at this point in the draft. Arizona, they got their guy in Marvin Harrison Jr., their wide receiver, to improve their offense. I think they go defense here. Cooper DeJean sitting there. Like I said, him or Wiggins, both a good pick for Minnesota and Arizona going back to back. Pittsburgh, I think, also needs some secondary help. I think they could use a guy to pair alongside Joey Porter Jr., and Terrion Arnold could be that guy at Alabama. I think that's probably where they go. I don't think they go offensive line again for a second straight year in the first round. And I think their wide receiver core is fairly solidified, in my opinion. So I'll give them Terrion Arnold. For Cincinnati, this is an easy pick. They're going offensive tackle. They're a team that I think could see a wide receiver pick if T. Higgins makes his way out of the door, but I think it's much, much, much more likely they end up going offensive tackle. Amarius Mims is sitting here from Georgia. I like that fit with them. Gives them a blindside protector for Joe Burrow. Tampa at pick 19 is one of the hardest picks to predict. Similar to Cincinnati, if they lose T. Higgins, Tampa Bay, if they lose Mike Evans, I could see this being a wide receiver, and that's what I'm going to pick. Rome Odunze kind of slid here. I think that's great value for them. And even if they don't lose Mike Evans, rather, I think that's a good wide receiver to put alongside of him as Chris Godwin's kind of taking a back seat. I think you can let him develop, uh, even if you extend Mike Evans into the future. Number 20, Indianapolis Colts. This works out great for them. I think they need another weapon on the outside. Keon Coleman could be that guy for them as Anthony Richardson comes back. And he's now got Michael Pittman and Keon Coleman in that offense. I think that's great. Alongside Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, of course, if they bring him back. Seattle here, I think they're going edge all the way. There's a couple good edges still available. Braylon Trice, and of course Robinson from Penn State is still available. This NFL mock draft database simulator is pushing me towards Bo Nix as well. I don't think they go quarterback, at least in my opinion. I'm going to take Robinson. I think that's just another pass rushing weapon, especially I believe Leonard Williams' deal is expiring. I think he fills that hole quite nicely. Jacksonville. I think they're going offensive line. And even though they tend to skew defense in the last few drafts, right? I think they're going offensive line. I think they want to continue to protect Trevor Lawrence. That's one of the biggest needs for them, especially tackle. You see Fuaga here. I think that's the pick for them. LA Rams at pick 23 is interesting. I could see them going a number of ways. I think most of them are going to be on the defense. I think most of their team needs are on the defense. I mean, if we look here, LA Rams team needs, according to NFL mock draft database simulator, edge, offensive tackle, cornerback. You see defensive line there, interior offensive line there. Essentially all the defensive positions except for linebacker are in need. I think they take the best player available and at a position of need. That's Braylon Trice here from Washington. Gives them another edge rusher, providing that defense with another weapon that they could utilize because the offense seems pretty solid, at least this year. And most of these guys are coming back next year. So Buffalo. Buffalo's an interesting pick as well. I could see them going to Egbuka to pair alongside Davis and Stephon Diggs. There's always tension with Stephon Diggs and trade rumors swirling, but I don't think that's likely. I think they go Lassiter here with the options available. Get another corner. They've been going. I feel like they've been going defensive backs in drafts for years now, but I like that pick for them a lot. Kansas City, it doesn't matter where it was listed. They were going wide receiver. And for Egbuka to fall to them, I think that's a great talent for them to fill into that offense. I believe that's who I had them drafting in yesterday's edition. Love that pick for them. I think they probably feel like that went the best possible way it could. Dallas needs an offensive tackle I find interesting. I think this depends on kind of where you look. I could see them going interior offensive line as well. I don't love any of the top running backs in this draft. I think maybe they go Graham Barton and just either slot him in at guard opposite Martin or they put him at center. I don't think he could swing out wide, but I just don't see them going tackle. I just can't see it. And I think I know they want corner. They list corner as a need here because Stephon Gilmore's probably out next year, but Deron Bland looked really good. You have to figure Trayvon Diggs will be back. I don't think they go corner. I'm going to give him Graham Barton out of Duke. Houston, pick 27. I think with Bo Nix and Michael Penix on the board, I think this is an interesting spot, an intriguing spot for a trade. Houston with several needs available, on their team. I could see them making a deal. I mean, if we look at a trade option here for a team that needs a quarterback, let's say Atlanta, wanting to get up into the back end of this first round, they give up a third. I think it's probably going to, alarm going off. I think it's probably going to take a little bit more than this, but this is going to go through with the trade machine here. I think it'll probably take, they don't have a first next year. I think it'll probably take at least a second next year to get this done. Nonetheless, let's get it done. I think this makes a lot of sense. Mock draft simulator's not letting me do it. Well, anyway, we'll pretend this is Atlanta here. Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr., take your pick. I don't have a preference either way. I think they're both intriguing projects, and Atlanta will probably start whoever they draft pretty early in the season next year. I'll give them Bo Nix here. It kind of looks funny Houston taking Bo Nix, but remember, this is Atlanta taking this at pick 27, and they hopefully get their quarterback of the future. Detroit pick 28. Listen, I think they could go edge here, but at the end of the day, their secondary needs help. I think they get a corner. I think they reach a little bit for Kalen King, at least according to these rankings. I think that just makes a lot of sense for them. For the Miami Dolphins, I think they're going offensive line. I mean, they list tackle as the top priority here. They had plenty of injuries on their line this year. And given the timing and the scheme behind Mike McDaniel's system, offensive line is important for them. You see when Tua gets hit, it can cause problems, especially last year. This year he's done quite well with avoiding injury. Nonetheless, I think they go tackle. Fuatanu sitting here, I think he makes a lot of sense for them. Philadelphia at pick 30. I think they end up going secondary. I mean, you see here the Philadelphia team needs, according to this website, quarterback and safety, right? Number one and number two. I think they go secondary. They got Cameron Kitchens here as a great option to do that. I think that's an easy solution for them. San Francisco, I think they go corner all the way. I know they list offensive tackle here. They also list safety and wide receiver pretty early on, I assume, in case Brandon Ayuk ends up making his way out of town. I think they reach a little bit for corner. I think that's a big area of need for them. Quinyon Mitchell makes a lot of sense out of Toledo. I think that's an easy pick. And then number 32, Baltimore. I think they're just picking the best player available. I could see them taking a wide receiver to replace Odell Beckham Jr. At the same time, I think they just go pure who they have highest on the draft board. And for them, for this website, it's the edge rusher out of Ohio State, and I'm going to butcher his name. I always butcher his name. Tuimoloau. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. The JT out of Ohio State here. I think they go the best player available, and that's an edge rusher for them. And that concludes this first round draft. I think this is an intriguing one. We look down the list. Caleb Williams, of course, going first overall. That was kind of the premise of this whole draft. But some interesting picks. Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, and Jaden Daniels falling to where they are. I think some of the picks in the back half of the round were fun. Chicago ends up getting Jared Verse after trading out of that pick alongside Malik Neighbors to build around Justin Fields. I like some other picks, including getting Amarius Mims for Cincinnati. Let me close that ad. Amarius Mims out of into Cincinnati. I like that pick for them. Keon Coleman and Romeo Dunze to their respective spots, getting weapons for those quarterbacks. And then Atlanta trading up, of course. Atlanta, not Houston, taking Bo Nix. I think that's an interesting wrinkle too. I think this is a fun draft. This was a fun draft. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think I did a good job? Do you think this is likely? If you had to create a mock draft with Caleb Williams going first overall to Denver, where would you have the next few picks? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching this Quick Thoughts episode. Once again, please don't take this too seriously. I don't know a whole lot about college football. I think it's just a fun thought experiment, especially since my last draft was just a flop immediately after, since we know Russell Wilson's out of town. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Peace out.